A month and a half, 2 months later, I threw in the towel. I was forced to go live daily. I was forced to build a business. I was forced to overcome the warehouse problem. We literally sold everything, like 200 units in 2 hours. That's everything we had. So now I can't go live again. I can't sell anything again.
Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my sesquipedalian co-host, Chris Rasick. This week's episode is a little different than what you guys might be used to. We're bringing on a guest who was one of us, and by that I mean an Amazon seller, a seven-figure Amazon seller doing about 1.7 million a year in wholesale, and then his account got suspended, a story you've heard over and over again. But he got suspended for like 180 days with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory locked up. And that guest is Kip Roland. Now, instead of folding, Kip pivoted into live selling on Whatnot, a platform that a lot of Amazon sellers probably haven't heard of, or at least have not actually opened up the app to see what it's all about. In under 10 months, he's done over 350,000 in sales, built nearly 37,000 followers, and now he's one of the early movers on TikTok live auctions as well, where I believe you've already cracked like the top 20 in live generated revenue on the platform, which is awesome. Today, we're going to dig into what actually happened with the Amazon suspension, what live selling looks like as a real business, how Whatnot and TikTok live compare, and whether Amazon sellers should be paying attention to these platforms as a sales channel. Kip, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we dive in, you guys know the drill. We spend minutes preparing for each one of these episodes. So if you get some value from this podcast, do us a solid, pound the like button, hit subscribe, share this with your friends. The best way for us to grow this podcast is by getting you to interact with the show and letting us know you want to see more content like this. And if you keep your end of the bargain, we'll keep showing up and bring you a little education mixed with entertainment. All right, Kip, let's dive right into the deep end, man. So we did a little bit of research and found out like you started selling in high school, like you doing customized shoes.
Yeah.
And then you flipped PlayStations and sports cards during COVID. Like these are stories we've heard from several people on the show. It always starts young.
Yeah.
And then you became like a product manager at a company. And I'm kind of curious, could you give us the 5,000 foot view of how did you go from flipping stuff in high school to becoming a product manager? And then how did you end up quitting that job and kind of going all in?
Yeah. Appreciate you having me in. Yeah. It sounds like a similar story to a lot of the people that you guys have had on. I was selling stuff in like third grade. I was making comic books and selling them for like 50 cents to my friends in third grade. I remember that was a lot of fun. And so I'd always had something like selling stuff, always, just trying new things, trying to make a little bit of money. Sold a lot of stuff on eBay in college, started customizing sneakers in high school, moved to eBay in college. And then probably like a lot of people, you test Amazon for a week. You're like, oh, I'm going to test Amazon out and see how this is. Especially during 2020, not a lot of things were gated. I mean, it was pretty open for what you could do. And then you just sell thousands of units in a day or thousands of units in a month. Whereas on eBay or other channels, you're selling like 10, 20 units. And so that just opens your eyes. And that really opened my eyes. So in college, I was like, man, I got to sell on Amazon. And at that point, it was retail arbitrage. It was online arbitrage. I was in all the communities I could get into, learning from other people, getting different leads from other people. And, this is in my dorm room, just product in, product out. And so that was a lot of fun. Graduated, took a job, and was still doing like online arbitrage as a side hustle, and knew I always wanted to do something in that realm, whether e-commerce or, reselling or whatever it may be. And so, it was pretty popular to go to ASD, go to a convention, meet with suppliers, get in the wholesale game. That was kind of in 2022 or 2023. That was really the next step. It was like, hey, you got to get into wholesale. You got to get into wholesale. And so I wanted to do that. And so we went to ASD, and I still had my full-time job at this point. So we went to ASD, presented myself as an Amazon seller, and did that whole thing. And then it built up your suppliers, built up your relationships, came back home, realized like, hey, this can be a really good business. And like, I can be somebody who has a lot of relationships with suppliers, who can source a lot of product, and build my Amazon business. But it's kind of conflicting to have a full-time job, do that at the same time. So I decided to put in my 2 weeks at that point and went all in on Amazon Wholesale. And that was 3-4 years ago at this point. So
Was was there anything that like happened at ASD that, you know, made that switch flip, or was this just a realization you came to, you know, over the course of a couple of years or months?
yeah, I think it was almost maybe more personal where, hey, I'm representing my company as a full-time employee, and that seems conflicting with what I want to do, you know, with my Amazon business. I want to present myself to suppliers and build relationships as a full-time Amazon seller, not as somebody who is doing both. And so, you know, whenever a supplier or relation, you know, or a, you know, source looks my name up, I don't want them to see that I also have a full-time job and I'm kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so, you know, I built a lot of relationships at ASD. It just at least started them. And so I wanted to continue to pursue those without having to manage both. So it was kind of like, I'm ready to go all in. I want to show these suppliers that I'm all in. And so that was that.
We've had a few people recently who, you know, are in sort of that position. Like it's, do I quit my job? There have been 1 or 2 people that I know of who their job separated from them, not through no fault of their own. I want to talk for a second about like the emotional side of that, or the mindset side of that. How do you, because it's a big leap, taking what feels like a steady paycheck to going and just being responsible for everything.
Yeah.
How did you manage that?
Well, thankfully, my wife is like an amazing, you know, foundation for us. She has a great job. So she was able to provide the health benefits, health insurance, those things, which really helps. And whenever we got married, like she knew I wanted to go this route. And so it was always a plan at some point. I will say that like I was in an entry level job. I knew that what I was doing in my job, if I look back 10 years from now and I continued that path, I wouldn't probably wind up where I actually wanted to go. Now it's possible maybe I rise the ranks, and you know, it just wasn't it wasn't the path that I actually saw myself going down. And hey, let's take this leap of faith, go all in on entrepreneurship. If it doesn't work out, I can come back to this job. It's an entry level job. I'm sure that, you know, job markets, sure, they can be difficult to find a job, those things, but I can always come back. I know that those positions and those jobs are always there, as well as I knew that if something went belly up in that in that company, they're cutting me, right? They don't have a ties to me like I do to them. And people always struggle with like, is it the right time to quit? Is it the right time to quit? There's no right time to quit. You're always going to be doing things. They always need you. You always have that emotional connection to the people you work around. But if push comes to shove, they're going to cut you, you know, and that's that.
Yeah. I heard the Jeff Bezos's regret minimization framework there. Are you big into frameworks, or is that just
no, tell me about that. I don't think I've heard that.
Jeff Bezos has this regret minimization framework where he talks about, you know, being 80 years old, or, you know, even 10 years in the future. And if I look back, I would regret not making this decision. So I was just curious if that was something that was.
No, I hadn't put that together, but I mean, very similar, right? You look at yourself 10 years from now, is this the path am I walking in that direction? And the answer was no. And I thought too, like, if I go the entrepreneurship route and fail, which don't get me wrong, I failed a lot, right? But if I truly fail and I have to go back to the corporate world or whatever, I think that says more about me than staying in that job for 5 more years. I think that the failure and taking a bet on yourself and learning from your own mistakes, that says way more about you to a future employer than it will, hey, I worked this job for 5 years. And that was my perspective.
And it's a different set of table stakes though when you have a family. You know, your most valuable currency changes from, you know, we get a lot of young single Amazon sellers here, and their most valuable currency is different than ours. Once you have a family, you know, once stability is an issue. So, and shout out to the supportive significant others out there. You know, they don't get talked about enough. maybe it's just not, there are not enough people who have them on the show, but
Yeah,
we
she
need to
should
let
be on
that-
this podcast talking about putting up with me, right?
Yeah, and we need to recognize them. That's an important part. So, Kip, we mentioned the S word, and I'm not being a potty mouth when I say that, but we need to talk about the suspension. There's a lot of people that heard the tease in the beginning that are going to want the details on that. So, like Chris mentioned in the intro, you got suspended. It was 180 days, hundreds of thousands. The part he didn't mention, you had a newborn son at home at the time.
Yeah.
Which, kind of amplifies the impact of all of this. So share whatever you're comfortable with only, of course, but can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, no, I'm actually really excited to get into this topic because I've been on a couple other podcasts or just talked to other people about it, but they're not Amazon sellers. They don't get it. And whenever you tell them you got suspended, they think you're a bad actor. They think you're black hat or, you're the one scamming. And so this is exciting. I'm excited to talk about people in the industry about this who aren't going to look at me like I'm a scammer when I tell them I got suspended. But yeah, February, it was a year ago, actually, February 2025. The violation started in January of last year. And at this point, we had just came off $1.7 million in revenue in 2024. And, you're taking this momentum from Q4, you're flipping stuff like crazy in Q4. You're ready to reinvest all that and go big in 2025. Hey, we did 1.7 million this year. Let's do 3 million next year, 4 million next year, right? You have a lot of momentum going into January. And it was like January 15th or something. Boom, violation. Whenever you read those or when you get that email, your heart sinks. It's like, oh my gosh. So, I run over to my laptop, I open it up, and it was we were selling some Oral-B product. So obviously risky there. And as an Amazon seller, you're running the risk that you're selling other people's brands on Amazon, who owns a platform, and they're very protective of who sells, and those things like totally make sense. So you run the risk. And so whenever you get that email, you want to do everything you can to avoid it or just to fix it. And sometimes too, hey, I have $5,000 of this product. There's a world where I'm not going to be able to sell it and I just have to eat that cost or I have to liquidate it. That is total possibility. And I think most Amazon sellers know that that's a thing. And so whenever you get that email, you think to yourself, okay, we're going to cut the product because it was like an Oral-B and it was a counterfeit complaint. And, at this time we had sold $12,000 worth, no complaints, 5-star reviews. So I'm thinking to myself, it's probably not fake. It's probably something, the brand, enforcing it. And so I immediately remove all the inventory from our store, which I only had 2 SKUs of it. So I remove all the inventory from our store just to protect myself. I don't want to sell anymore. I put in like removal orders for these products, and no problem. We acknowledged the violation, and it was like a warning at that point because we had, good account metrics and things like that. So it was a warning. Literally the next day, it was a double violation. They come back and say, hey, you're doing it. You're selling counterfeit product. Now that it's a double violation, we have to suspend your account unless you can prove that it's authentic. And so I'm reaching out to my supplier saying, hey, can you get the documents? We really need these documents. This is serious because it's a double violation. Even though I removed the product, even though I did what I thought was everything in my power to prevent this from happening. And so I'll pause there, see if you guys have any questions, but the story does progress. So.
Was it a violation on each SKU? Was that the second incident?
Yes. Yeah. And it was, I had removed the inventory, but I didn't delete the listing from my account. And so because I didn't delete the listing from my account, I'm calling Amazon seller support and they're saying, well, if you didn't delete it, and it's an overseas customer service rep who doesn't really care about you. So you're telling like, hey man, like I removed the inventory. I haven't sold a single unit since that initial violation. And, I'm ready to remove all the inventory. I'm ready to refund all the customers. Just give me my account back. They're saying, well, if you didn't delete the listing, then you're clearly intending to sell in the future. You're clearly not taking the violation seriously. And this is at a time where my wife is due in 2 weeks. Like she was due at the beginning of February. And this is essentially like being fired from your job, right? We've been doing this for the past 2 years. And now they're saying I can't sell anymore. And so this is like panic is setting in. I mean, it's a terrible position to be in. And especially with what we were going with, my wife being pregnant and things like that. So it was really brutal. And so you take the steps, you hire a lawyer and, hope that it works. You reached out to my suppliers trying to get the documents. And long story short, we spent, I think it was like $8,000 on the lawyer. Nothing happened. The supplier can't get the right documents, or the documents they did do, Amazon's not accepting them. And it was about 2 months later where I had just, I kind of threw in the towel. About a month and a half, 2 months later, I threw in the towel. At that point, we had kind of started the transition to Whatnot, which we'll get to in a second. But unbeknownst to me, it was like a 180-day violation. So after 180 days, they said, hey, if you acknowledge the violation, refund all the customers you had sold this Oral-B product to, then you can have your account back. And so 180 days later, this is like June or July, right? We acknowledge the violation. We refund all the people that we sold this stuff to, which was like $20,000 worth, and our accounts back. So, and now the Amazon landscape's totally different, right? It's like 7 months later. I feel like last year from January really to to the middle of the year, it was a huge shift in the Amazon space. And so I hadn't really done much with the Amazon business at that point, but all while that, from January to July at that point, we were really building our Whatnot business and going all in that direction. So yeah, that kind of sums up that story. A little PTSD there, right?
Yeah. I appreciate you going through it to tell the story. So lasted 180 days. In the meantime, the inventory that was locked up, did you end up getting that back, or what happened with the inventory that you didn't have access to for that time?
Yeah. So thankfully I can't remember the name, but our account had a high level of health or whatever. And so we had you guys know the name of it, but we had somebody we could call, and our account was kind of protected. So the time from January to the official suspension was like 2 weeks, where Amazon said, hey, you can still sell for these 2 weeks, but at the 2 weeks mark, your account will be shut down. So during that time, we recalled all the inventory. We sold everything that we had on Amazon, if we could sell it. We got all of our payouts out. And so thankfully, they didn't seize all our inventory as much as they could have. We still had some residual effects where I had some products that ended up getting expired that I thought I could be able to sell. Because, during that 1.5 month period, you're like, I think my Amazon account will come back. I don't want to liquidate this inventory. I don't want to get rid of it, because when my account comes back, I'm ready to sell. So yeah, we lost some inventory because some expirations, stuff like that. But thankfully, we did get our inventory back from Amazon, most of it.
Okay. And now, after the fact, now that you've kind of sat on it and it's resolved itself, is there anything you would do differently? How would you attack? Was acknowledging it the first time, was that a mistake in your mind, or is there, what did you learn through the process? Yeah,
I mean, as nitpicky as it is, I wish I had known the exact steps to take once you get the violation. Because, as an Amazon seller, you get violations here and there, and a lot of them don't mean anything. And so whenever you get one that may be serious and you acknowledge it, and then it gets removed from your account, everything looks green, then it's like, okay, business as usual. Whereas I wish I would have took it a little bit more seriously, that first one. I think acknowledging it was the right move at the first one, because it was like a warning. But I wish I had removed the listings from my account. I wish I would have went back and removed all the listings from my account that even remotely have, if I don't plan to sell it, I need to remove it because it could hold me liable in the future. So that's what I wish I would have done. I wish I would have looked at the, literally what is the best steps to take right now. I was not a health account expert, and I didn't care to be. I wish I would have been.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, let's transition a little bit to what's working now. There's going to be people who are listening, but what the heck is Whatnot? And so, can you tell us a little bit about what the platform is? How does selling work on that platform? And is it something that maybe more Amazon sellers should care about?
Yeah. Whatnot, it's exciting. It's live selling in general is the fastest growing channel in the US. So that's across all different platforms. But Whatnot right now is the market share leader. And so Whatnot is an app that is primarily focused on live selling, more specifically, live auctions. And so live auctions are where sellers will auction off either individual items or case packs or pallets of goods starting at $1, as low as $1 up to, I mean, they could start at whatever price they want, but it's a live auction. So the users watching get to bid and be super engaged during that auction. They see the item on the screen and they make the purchase based on what they see and what they think the value is worth. So sometimes things will go over retail. Sometimes things will go way under retail. I know a lot of people who source on Whatnot. They go to like low viewership streams and find really great. I mean, there's arbitrage opportunities there because sellers are auctioning off a specific item to an audience of maybe only 20 people. And so if you're really sharp on the price points of these things and the market value of these things, you can make a lot of money that way. Or there's huge streams where sellers are selling to thousands of people, and you know the price that these items get bid up to are really good or really high prices. And so as a seller, you obviously want to be in those streams. But that's kind of what Whatnot is. It's a live auction platform, and it's super exciting. I think they added 20 million new users last year in 2025. And so it's rapidly growing. Lots of sellers are coming on board. Lots of different categories are being created on there. And so it's a huge opportunity right now. I think being an Amazon seller, you are already in the inventory side of things. You're already building relationships with, you know, suppliers, or you're seeing these arbitrage opportunities on different websites. And so, you know, if you only think you can sell it on Amazon, well, what would it mean if you had another channel to sell on? Would you be able to source more? Would that open up the gates to more products that you can sell? I think so, and buy and source. So I think it's really exciting. Anytime you can get another channel that's fast growing, brings a lot of new buyers on, it's super exciting.
Mm-hmm. And of course, every Amazon seller is going to want to know, like, what's the fee structure like, especially when you compare it to Amazon's. You know, we're used to like, all right, Amazon's going to take a 32% haircut right off the top, and then I get to make some of the difference.
Yeah. Whatnot is one of the lowest fees of any channel I've ever seen. They take 8% plus a 3% processing fee plus 30 cents per transaction. So it kind of depends on how low the item sells, but it's usually around 12%, like 10 to 12%. So it's really, really low.
Okay, that's not too bad. And then you get to charge like shipping too, right?
Yeah, so it's very customary on Whatnot that all buyers pay for shipping. And that's like a crazy thought, right, to an Amazon seller. But that's the way it is. And that's how it is on most auction sites, auction platforms. The buyer's pretty well aware that, hey, I'm going to be paying for shipping. Thankfully, Whatnot standardizes it. And so it can be kind of confusing at first. But, you know, if your buyer's in Florida and you're in Texas, it's the same shipping rate for them as this if you were in Maine or if you were in Washington, because Whatnot standardizes it and they handle all the shipping and all that transaction. So it makes it really easy for sellers. And also you have an advantage if you have a shipping advantage basically anywhere you are in the US.
Do you have shipping standards that you need to adhere to? Like I need to get these out within X number of days?
Yeah, they are. I will say they are pretty lax on that. And within 2 days, I think is the main thing. And it shows on your account. Like if an account is shipping within 4 days, it'll show them and it'll show that on their account. And then a buyer can determine if they want to purchase from you. So obviously faster the better, but you're not withholding to anything that I know of. That's egregious, right? I think you could probably get 3 days before anything bad happens.
Nice.
All right. So for those keeping score of the timeline at home, January was a suspension, and you started selling on Whatnot in February, the very next month. That was right when your son was born. And you've admitted that your first shows were brutal. It's kind of I kind of see the FOMO, you know, from the live shopping, you know, is the positive.
Yeah.
But then it feels like getting an audience would be the challenge, you know, so it's a little pro and con list. So I assume there probably weren't too many viewers in the beginning. Can you walk us through what those beginning shows were? And then, but what was the proof of concept that kept you coming back?
Yeah, great question. And you're exactly right. I think a lot of people flock to Whatnot because they think it's like free money, right? It's a new platform. Hey, if I started on Amazon when it first started, I'd be so rich. So let me start on Whatnot because they just started. Let me go be so rich. But yeah, I mean, it's not free money. It's a lot of work. You're building an audience. And that's one thing that I wanted to do specifically about Whatnot is people follow you and you build an audience. Whereas on Amazon, people don't really know they purchase from you when they do. And so that's the almost total opposite of live selling, right? They are literally looking at you and buying from you. So if I can grow my audience on Whatnot, that's a leverage point. That's an equity piece that I have. But yeah, whenever I first started, viewership was a little bit low and you're figuring things out. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. I thought it would be very transactional. So what we ended up doing is we sourced some kitchen appliances, like closeout kitchen appliances. There were some customer returns. It was like coffee makers, vacuums, blenders. And those were things that I knew a lot about. Like I like that stuff. I like going to TJ Maxx and shopping for that stuff. And so I was like, okay, I think bringing this to Whatnot will be pretty interesting. And there hadn't been a lot of streams with that stuff at that point. So we tried it. And yeah, I mean, to your point, the viewership was actually decent. We had a lot of views in my opinion, right? I thought it'd have like 5 people. And so we had 50, 60 people in there because we were bringing something that was purely like very unique to the platform at that point. So people were really interested, but the price points weren't there. I paid way too much for this load but we broke even. So to answer your question about like my proof of concept is we broke even and we gained a lot of followers. People followed us. They entered the giveaways. They caught on. They're like, hey, I'm coming back to your next show. And this is all anecdotal evidence that I'm getting while I'm talking to them because I'm streaming. I'm there. So I'm streaming. I'm saying, hey, guys, here's a blender. Here's the brand. Starting at $1, go, and seeing what happens. Some things I realized would go for a lot and some things would not go for a lot. And so I'm taking in that data. And I'm trying to think, okay, now let me source this. Okay, let me source this. Now, what happens if I got this a little bit cheaper? Now, XYZ, I'm thinking of all those things. And I just see the opportunity at that point because we're breaking even and we're getting followers. And I really, really like that. And I didn't think any of that would happen. I thought we'd sell everything for $1.
Right. So, okay. So you're kind of, you're getting the data and you're getting the growth. What about the realization that this could be a real business, that this could be the answer to what Amazon took from you? Was there a certain show where there was like a dollar figure or an audience that said, all right, any doubt is removed now?
Yeah, I don't think it was a dollar figure. It was the volume that you could do because our auctions were 20, 30 seconds long. And so we're selling an item, there's some time in between the items you're running and things like that. On average, we were selling an item a minute that we were live. And so if we're selling an item a minute, that's 60 items an hour. That's a lot. That's actually a lot. And then the prices you're getting are, sometimes decent, sometimes not, this and that. But I saw the volume that we could do. And if you run an auction at a low enough price, it will sell. And so you have a couple leverage points. Number one, go live longer. Longer you're live, more money you make. And then number two, you need higher viewership. Higher viewership usually leads to higher bids because there's more people bidding against each other. So those were the two leverage points I saw. It's like, okay, go live longer and then create more engaging moments in your show so that more people get in there and so that you can get higher prices. So those were like, okay, I can actually change and influence how much a product sells for. Whereas, on other platforms, eBay, Amazon, pretty much any platform, the buyer is going to compare to other sellers. The buyer is going to compare the market rate and make a best purchase based on their decision or based on the market. Whereas on Whatnot, you have the audience right in front of you. They're not comparing prices. They're not comparing, like it's a moment that you're selling. That's what I always tell people. It's like you're selling the moment. And so if I can, make that moment seem so valuable, so rare, so exciting, then, we have a really, really good business. And so that's kind of what I saw is like influence in how you sell, influence in that side of the business that I've never seen before. And that's kind of how I determined like this can be real.
Now, is there strategy to the lineup of products? Can you influence the show's profitability by kind of making some sacrificial lambs while people are still getting in there early and then the good stuff's later? Is that a thing?
No, yes, 100%. And everybody has a different strategy. I talked to a lot of other like sellers who are either bigger than me or smaller, and they say like sometimes I don't even know what I'm planning to sell whenever I go live. I like to feel it out. And it really is like, who's there? What are they willing to pay? What type of items do they want? And as a streamer, it's kind of your job to read the room and keep it engaging and keeping it flowing. One thing that we do is we bundle the shipping. And so shipping for a consumer is on a show by show basis. So like if you're live for 4 hours, you can't combine a shipment from one show into another show to save the consumer shipping at this point in time. And so the buyer would get involved, the first couple of items they pay for shipping. But then because they paid for, let's say they pay $10 in shipping, that means we can ship them 10 items. We're just speaking in examples here. We can ship them 10 items, but they've only paid for, or they've already bought 2 items, but they paid for 10 shipping, if that makes sense. And so in the next 8 items on their screen, they see free shipping. And so kind of at the beginning, you're combating the buyers, paying for shipping. They're not only paying $10, they're also paying $8 for shipping, or 10, whatever it may be. So the bids are a little bit lower, but you kind of want to bring out some of the best items so that people stay engaged at that point. So we sell a lot of great items at the beginning, maybe not for the highest prices, but towards the end of the show, whenever you tell people, hey, we're about to wrap up, this show's been going on for a few hours, we're about to be done here in 20, 30 minutes. People get that like FOMO immediately. They're like, okay, well, I have free shipping. I already paid for shipping. So I want to take advantage of it. And that's whenever things really start to fly, and you can bring out some big items, like, some hotter items that you've been saving, or, whatever strategy you want to do. People kind of start to open up those floodgates on their bids because they get that FOMO that, oh, he's about to stop. Like, this is my moment. And so you're always selling the moment. But yeah, I mean, that's a great strategy of like, start with some high items, and then you're taking some losses every now and again, but it's to keep them there, and it's to maybe profit on big time on some products later.
Fascinating.
Do you have any demographic data? Like, are you selling a bunch of stuff to Utah moms, or is it, does it depend on what you're selling as to who shows up?
Yeah, it does depend on what you're selling. Unfortunately, they don't have any demographic data that they give us as sellers right now. However, I do have a lot of anecdotal evidence, right? Anecdotal data, because I'm there talking to them. I know their usernames. I know which people are tuning in. I like to ask them where they're from, things like that. And we sell right now, we pivoted from electronics to clothing. So we sell a lot of clothing. And at the beginning, we were selling Target branded clothing. Mm-hmm. And I found that a lot of the buyers who really bought a lot of stuff from us, I'm talking 15, 20 items every show, they didn't live anywhere near a Target. They lived in very rural areas. And so this is their opportunity. They're getting discounted goods. They don't have a TJ Maxx, so they don't have these things near them. So this is their opportunity to really have a shopping spree. And so that's what I found is like a lot of rural people would come who aren't, they don't have access to those things. So I thought that was really interesting, but it does depend on what you're selling. Sometimes we'll have high-end shows, luxury shows, and those buyers are in LA or New York or sometimes in Texas. And then other like lower price shows, we get a lot of rural people. So it's all anecdotal, and you kind of really read the room and understand your audience, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about switching from appliances to weapons apparel. You're not the person I see buying a dress from, you know. So what drove that change?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the volume piece earlier, and that's what really opened up the gates to this business for me. And so we were selling these kitchen appliances, right? And they're like air fryers or toaster ovens or coffee makers. They're really big. And we had rented a little small fractional warehouse space, and I underestimated the amount we could sell. So I rented this tiny space, and we literally sold everything, like 200 units in 2 hours. That's everything we had. So now I can't go live again. I can't sell anything again. And if I did want to, I would need to get more space and bring more goods in, bring a week worth of goods in or 2 weeks of goods in, because, you're dealing with the freight and all those things. And I just didn't have the space for the kitchen appliances because the volume that you can sell was crazy to me. Like, it was unknown to me. And so I thought, okay, well, fashion's pretty big category on Whatnot, and it's smaller. Like, you can get 1,000 units in a pallet instead of 20 coffee makers. So I made that pivot, and it was easier to pack. It was easier to ship. And then also I found that women love to shop. They love to shop. They love to buy clothes. There is definitely a hesitation and kind of an overcoming piece that I have to do as a streamer. People don't like, they want to buy from somebody they relate with. And so if a girl, you know, or maybe like middle-aged woman tunes in, they see me, it doesn't vibes all the time. And so eventually we ended up hiring some streamers and doing those things. But at the beginning, I have to overcome that. And so as a streamer, you know, what are the things that I say that increase viewership? What are the things that I say that increase engagement? How do I address their concerns immediately? Like as soon as they come in the room, how do I address their concerns? Because they have concerns. So you kind of do have to overcome that in the women's fashion thing. And I've learned so much about women's fashion in the past year. It's unreal.
Is having a variety of categories to sell in like a strategy, or does the algorithm prefer that you kind of pick a lane?
Yeah, I can't necessarily speak too much on the algorithm. However, I will say we have 40,000 people in our audience. They really like me. They really like us. And I've talked to some people at Whatnot about this, and they say that the average Whatnot user only purchases from 1 or 2 different accounts. And so if you can like get them into your stream and let them be a follower and really latch onto you, you probably have a buyer for the next year, next 2 years, or at least the life of their account even. We have a lot of people, and I just found this out not that long ago, that we have a lot of people who literally have purchased kitchen appliances from us over a year ago, and they still come back and purchase clothing from us now. And there was a lot of people who actually discovered us in the kitchen appliance show, and then they come back and buy clothes from us. So I think growing your audience is the most important piece. And then you can kind of take them where, not necessarily where you want them to go, but it's very cultural. Like our following has a culture. Our page has a culture. Hey guys, you know, what do you want to see from us? Let me go try to source it. Oh, this is exciting. Like there's exciting moments that we bring. There's some core, you know, offerings that we bring. One piece of evidence for this is we did a food show, right? Clothing to food makes no sense. But we did a food show and we hyped it up for a long time. And we brought in a lot of Costco food, like protein bars, energy drinks, things like that. And we built the box in front of them and then sold the box. And this was an experiment. I like experiments. So this was an experiment. I didn't think it would do well. Over 60%, no, sorry, over 50, it was 55%, I think, of our buyers in that show were returning buyers. And we had never sold food, right? So all these people who had purchased clothes or kitchen appliances or beauty products that we had sold, they came and they bought food from us, which is a wild thought to me, but that's what happened, you know. And then we also gained new audience from that category, people who had bought food on Whatnot before. They came and found us, and hopefully they end up buying clothing from us. So as you're building your audience, right, you can kind of take them where you want to. And I do think, you know, having those exciting moments or those experiments, people in our audience actually appreciate.
Mm-hmm. So we do online arbitrage, and you've done it. So, you know, we get to sit behind the safety of a keyboard. You know, we don't have it. It's not very people-y.
Yeah.
And you've gone 180 degrees from that. What would you say to the person who's like, I don't know if I want to have, like, I mean, I've got a face for radio, and I work through it and do a podcast anyway. But there are some people who aren't willing to do that, or it's a really high bar to jump. Mm-hmm. What would you tell those people?
I tend to not be as like, I don't know, nice or like, I just go for it. You got to go for it. You got to go for it. And you're going to have a lot of fun. The people that tune into your show will relate to you. The people that tune in and engage in your show, they'll relate to you. Hey, you know, you're somebody who likes the same things as me. You have the demeanor that I like. And so you're going to have a little community inside this app that you didn't even know was possible. And I'm an introvert myself. Definitely didn't think I'd be, you know, live streaming, especially women's clothing. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot like whenever you're doing retail arbitrage or online arbitrage and you find an insane deal, you get the adrenaline pumping, right? That, you know, you get the adrenaline like, oh my gosh, I'm adding this to my cart. Or you turn the corner at a Walmart store and you see, you know, the shelf of gold, right? The shelf of profit. Like it's that adrenaline. So whenever you're live, people tune in, they talk to you. and then you make a profitable sale and you're like, holy crap, this is cool. They like me and they're buying from me and it's profitable. Okay, let me do it again. Boom. Let me do it again. Boom. Let me do it again. Boom. So then it's a dopamine, then it's adrenaline. And you didn't know that was a thing beforehand. I mean, still before we go live, I get nervous, right? I'm like, what if this doesn't go well and it's a waste of 4 hours or 3 hours or however long? But then you start to get in a flow and then you start to make sales and then people start to, communicate with you, ask you questions. It's a lot of fun. You don't expect it beforehand.
It's interesting. And I think I know the answer. You kind of alluded to what I think the answer to this is going to be, but you've said that the shows where the viewers don't know what's coming next have been some of your best performing shows, which it sounds like your audience is there as much for you as they are your inventory, which may explain that. But that's it's a good question. A shift from, what Amazon sellers are used to. Can you walk us through like what the first 10 minutes of a show looks like? How are you establishing the point where you can start reading the energy of the audience?
Yeah. So what performs best on Whatnot is high variety. The way that users watch a show right now is kind of like a movie. They tune in at the beginning or maybe halfway through, and they'll usually watch it to the end. Now, that's not everybody, but we have a lot of users who literally will tune in at the very beginning and they'll watch to the very end, which is crazy to me. I did not think it would be like that at all. And so it's your job to be engaging and entertaining the full length of the show. If you sell the same item over and over, the exact same item over and over and over and over and over again, the person who bought that item once, they're not going to stay the 4 hours you're selling that same item. And so we have high variety, whether it be if we sell clothing, for instance. So we have a lot of different sizes, every size. Let's take shoes. We sell a lot of shoes. We have sizes 5 up to sizes 12. We have heels, we have sneakers, we have sandals, we have different brands. Some are new, some are not new. And so as a buyer, you're tuning into this show thinking, he has my shoe and I just have to wait and see. And I'm presenting that as well. I'm like, guys, you never know what we have. If you're a size 8, we have size 8s. If you like heels, we have heels. If you like boots, we have boots. And so these people are tuning in and we're keeping their attention because they never know what's coming next. And they see every shoe and they get a little jealous, right? If it's not their size or if it's not their exact one, man, like that could have been mine. And so that first 10 minutes, we're really presenting that idea and giving them the expectation. Hey, if you tune in for 4 hours or however long we're going to go live, here's what you can expect. You can expect us to run all sizes, all styles. Today we have Nike, Adidas, Hoka, Uggs, Birkenstocks, right? So I'm giving them the brands to expect. And then also I'm saying, hey, everything starts at $1 and it's a 10-second auction. So you're going to get an insane deal if you stay to the end. You might not see your size right now, but give it 5 minutes. You might see your size. You might see the one. And so people will tune in and that's the engaging piece, right? It's like, okay, I didn't like this shoe, but what's the next one? Okay, I didn't like this shoe, but what's the next one? And so, as a streamer, you're understanding which sizes are selling for the most, which brands are selling for the most. How do I keep people engaged? Okay, I just ran a size 5. Not a lot of people are size 5s. So if I run another size 5, I'm probably going to see a lot of people tune out because in their mind, they think all he has is size 5s. So I'm going to go from size 5 up to a really common size 9. Then I might go back to a 7. Then so you're getting that flow, you're keeping that engagement and that audience kind of in the palm of your hand that whole time.
And I imagine that's probably going to drive the price up once somebody finally does see their size.
That's 100% right because they have time invested into it. They've already spent 30 minutes waiting for the perfect shoe, and now the perfect shoe comes. They're not going to let it go, and so you have to create that moment as well. And you're not fabricating it. It's the truth. Like this is a size 8 in a brown leather boot. It's $200 retail. We don't have another one of these. If you want it, now's your chance. And so that's how you drive those bids up. Is you kind of create real moments of scarcity.
Huh. Amazing. Sorry, go ahead, Chris. You got a question?
Sorry. So you do these auctions, they started at $1. Now, for an Amazon seller, like that has got to be the scariest thing ever, you know? 'Cause, like let's look at Keepa, like this thing sells for $40. It has sold this way for the last, 3 years. I know what I'm going to make. How long in between? I know that you say you run 10-cent or 10-second auctions and they start at $1, but how long are you kind of building up that product before you start the auction?
Yeah.
And because my question is, how often are you selling something at a loss compared to how often are you making a profit?
Yeah. Great question. So that is, I mean, it ebbs and flows, right? Some shows, and I think it has a lot to do with the algorithm or maybe just the time of day or, whatever it may be. But some shows you have tons of viewership, tons of engagement, and the only thing you need to do is shut your mouth and run items. Go, 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 because you have people there. Then other shows are really, can kind of be pulling teeth of like, hey guys, you're hyping up a product. This should go for at least $60, or this retails $200. You're going to get it for $1, right? And then also you do have some bid, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like some tools that you can do at your disposal of like, okay, maybe I don't want to do 10-second auctions today. Maybe we should do 30-second because these prices are just not there right now. And so you have, as a streamer, you can pull all those different levers of, let's slow the show down so that I can get the most out of the items, or let's speed the show up so that I can take advantage of the audience, not take advantage, but take advantage of the engagement that we have here. So you have some of those things at your disposal. And as a streamer, you got to think about those. Like, is this profitable? Is it going to be profitable if I keep doing it? The main piece about Whatnot is right now you have two markets. You have products that have a market value. Think sports cards, gold, silver. Those things do really well on Whatnot because a buyer can know exactly what it should go for, and a seller can know exactly what it should go for. And if it's not hitting that, then it's like, well, you can sell it on eBay, or you can just change how you sell it, because it has a price out there. Then there's another aspect of things that is mostly liquidation. Liquidation, it could be customer returns, it could be store closeouts, and you're usually getting those at 90% off retail, 80, 90% off retail, depending on the category. So your buy cost and your COGS are so low that you can afford to run it at $1 and take some losses on a couple items or a few items. But then the law of averages over time, hey, we made $4 or $5 a unit. It's not gangbusters. I mean, I know on Amazon, you're looking for $3 to $5 profit on each one, but you get to sell volume. It's kind of the same thing on Whatnot where, hey, this one we made $20 on, but this one we broke even. So at the end of the day, we made 10. And then this one you make 3. And then this one, maybe you lose a couple dollars. But then the law of averages over time, hey, we made $4 per unit, but we sold an item every single minute, right? Mm-hmm. So there are intentional losses. There are intentional losses. You have to be smart about it, but there are intentional losses that we're taking to build a room and to build an audience and build engagement. And just an understanding of like, this was a size 6, that's just less desirable than a size 10, or that's just less desirable than this. Whether it be size or whether it be product, whatever it may be, you can't be naive to the fact that some items are going to be lost.
And you said you can slow a show down. That's like that's mid show. Like you have those.
Yeah. So like you can run an auction for 10 seconds, or you can run an auction for 30 seconds, or you can run an auction for a minute. There's also sudden death, which is where at 0 seconds, the auction's over, no matter what. 10 seconds, it runs down to 0, over. Or you can do counter bid, whereas if somebody bids, then it popcorns up to 5 seconds. Or if somebody bids again, it goes up to 5 seconds. So that's typically what you do if you have lower viewership and you don't want to be taking losses on these items. We do a lot of counter bid just to protect ourselves, and things usually go for a little bit higher, but it's less engaging because an item can run, a bid can run for a whole minute. And it's like, if you have 100 people in there, maybe only 10 of them are actually interested in that item. So you got to keep the other 100 or the other 90 engaged for that whole minute. Right. So it's a give and take, I guess, but to protect yourself, you can kind of slow that down.
Interesting. This is like a big psychology experiment.
It is. No, it
You
is.
have
Every
to you have to
single one is.
balance like losing engagement
Mm-hmm.
versus boosting the bid on one particular item.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Can we talk about like the mechanics of it? Kind of go
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long is your typical show? The average show? How many do you do per week? And then I want to talk about like the burnout rate. What's the highest or the longest that you've run a show?
So we try to go live about every day. Well, every day, 7 days a week. Usually we take Sundays off, but 6 to 7 days a week. I have 2 streamers that work for me that I've found over the course of a year who have been really, really amazing. And so between all 3 of us, it's pretty easy to go live 6 days a week. And we try to shoot for 3 to 5 hours. So sometimes if the show isn't going as well, it's like cut it off 3 hours, no problem. But if the show's going really well, it's like, okay, well, we can keep this thing rolling for 5 hours. So it really is a balancing act of how well the show is going. I think a lot of people, whenever I've started, I'm like, yeah, we'll go live for like an hour, maybe 2 hours. That'll be good. The longer, the better. And that's kind of surprising, but the longer, the better. People will watch the whole time, or they'll tune in and out over the course of 4 hours. You know, at the end of the day, a viewer, a 4-hour period in the middle of their day is like, it's almost nothing, because they tune in, tune out, take some emails, eat some food, tune in, tune out, then you're done. You know, so then they can't find you between that time you end and the next time you start. They can't find you. They can't buy anything from you. So the more time live, usually the better. And burnout, burnout. So my max is like 4 hours. If I get to 4 hours, I'm like, man, I'm exhausted, because you're talking the whole time. Your brain is going, you're multitasking. But we have some streamers, one of our streamers, she's gone for like 6-7 hours, and I'll ask her, like, how did you do that? And she just does. She's cracked. So I don't know. Some people are like that, and she loves it, and I'm happy for her. I'm glad to have her. But some people can go longer. My max is like 4 hours though.
Okay. And then for the, I'm specifically thinking of like the Amazon seller that is intrigued by this and is that you're steadily convincing to give this a shot.
Yeah.
What does the set look like? Can you do this anywhere, or does it?
Yeah, you can absolutely.
Production value an important factor?
I think that's a great question. I think it's a common misconception for a lot of new sellers is you got to have a great studio. It needs to look really nice. You need good lighting. You need a microphone. You need this. You need that. And honestly, that does not change anything. I found our shows perform better whenever people can just see the inventory behind us. And we still go live with just a phone. So you don't need a camera. We don't even have a microphone. We have some lighting, right? Like 2 little studio lights and a tripod and a phone. That's all we do. So the equipment is very, very, very minimal. And that is a common like objection for a lot of people. You just get by it. You don't need to mess with it. But then the other piece is the inventory, is your setup. We found that to that point earlier where you never know what comes next, and giving that buyer not the illusion, but that feeling that, hey, maybe their item is next. Maybe their item is next. Then we like to set up with all of our inventory behind us. So we'll get this stuff in on pallets, or maybe if you're at your house, you can just have a big stack of product behind you, and you just run from that stack. Boom, pull up an item, run it. Pull up an item, run it. What's great about live selling is people know that they're bidding for that item on the screen. And so you don't even have to know what you have before you go live. We typically don't. We have a pallet of goods. We don't even know what's in there. I mean, we have an idea. We don't know specifically what is in there. And so we just hold it up and run it. And maybe it's used, maybe it's a different size than what they thought, or, you know, there's a cut on it or whatever. It doesn't matter, because the buyers are bidding on the item on the screen. And so that's a huge leverage point. You don't have to pre-list everything. You don't have to look up market value. You don't have to do those things. You just hold it up and sell it.
Interesting. All right. So you're closing in on 40,000 followers on Whatnot in under a year. I think for anybody, that's a huge accomplishment.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You said you've talked to Whatnot reps. They've actually called you to help you grow your channel. For an Amazon seller, like that's just unheard of. You know, seller support is not calling us. I mean, especially not to be helpful.
Yeah.
So how does that Whatnot relationship like with sellers work? And Like, can you give them a ton of credit for your growth, or are they just, they're like, hey, you know what, you're doing a good job, so we want to give you any little boost we can?
Yeah, at the beginning, I was working pretty closely with them, and they actually is kind of what pushed me to pivot to clothing, because I told them about these challenges I had with the space, and they're just like, just do clothing. Like we have a lot of clothing buyers. I think you're really gonna like it, and so they helped me pivot in there. Probably the main thing that I've learned just from them is like they're still learning too, and they're building this platform for buyers, and so they're adding new categories all the time, and they're looking for new sellers to lead these new categories. They just added live food and like premium food. So people are literally like fishmongers are going live and selling crab and that they just caught, or like a butcher shop is selling a tomahawk steak, right? And so it's a new category for them. I'm sure they don't even know how it's going to go. It's probably the first time that type of food has ever been live sold, but they want to pioneer it. And so they're looking for new sellers to take in these new categories. And I have a friend who I think we'll probably talk about here in a second, is like, he's been selling built protein bars. He has a local source on built protein bars, and he's been selling kind of healthier food. And there's a lot of food on Whatnot that is like candy and things like that. And so Whatnot just reached out to him and said, hey, we don't have a lot of healthy food options on Whatnot, but we want to help you grow this category. So, I don't know exactly if there's levers that they pull or anything like that. I don't think there is. I think they want an even playing field, but it's just good to have somebody in your ear, or just have their ear, right? Like, hey, this didn't work for me. Hey, I don't like the way this shipping setting works. It just doesn't make sense. And then, they're working with their development team and doing those things. So I think if you're an Amazon seller and you are a successful Amazon seller and you want to pivot to Whatnot, or if you want to add Whatnot as a category, reach out to people at Whatnot and let them know, hey, this is my history. I want to build on this channel. I want to build, live selling. I see it as the future, or whatever you want to say, but let me help you. I have all this experience selling on Amazon. It's obviously a huge platform. They do things differently, but let me help you. I want to grow this channel. I want to grow Whatnot. I want to grow live selling. And I think that's going to, just that relationship is really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Are there any rules, as long as the category exists, or how many rules are there? And let me explain where I'm going with this. I drive past people who, during Easter, during Valentine's Day, that kind of stuff, just on the side of the road, they're selling these homemade bundles. And then you dive in and you're like, oh, some of these people make like $20,000, $30,000 in sales from these little roadside stands. And then you hear about a guy who does $1 million a year from one of these things, selling his homemade laundry detergent. So would you be allowed to do that kind of thing as long as that category exists on that platform?
Yeah, Whatnot specifically, I think live auctions in general are very open. It's very new. It's very, unregulated right now, so to speak. And so there's a lot of things that you can do that you couldn't do on Amazon, for instance. Part of that is intentional. Part of that, I think, will stay forever. And then other things, like if you're selling fakes, right, they're eventually going to, you shouldn't do that. If you're selling goods like food that you're homemaking and you don't have a license to sell it, nationally, then you probably shouldn't be doing that. But in general, with like brands and restrictions and things like that, I think it's going to remain pretty open on live auctions, for example, because it's not searchable. And that's one main thing that a lot of these brands don't like, is searchable. If you're Lululemon, or if you're, Oral-B or whatever, and you search Oral-B or you search Lululemon, they don't want they don't want the shopper to find me. And live auctions are not searchable because it's a moment in time that only, people who are watching that show can get access to. And so, I've actually talked to a lot of my brokers and people who are in brands ears, and they're saying, yeah, it's not searchable. So they're okay with this going on live marketplace. They're okay with this going on live right now. And so will that change? Maybe. But right now it's pretty open, and it's a big piece of it that's not searchable, which I like. I like that protection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I imagine it builds loyalty from your audience.
Yeah.
So that's Whatnot.
Yeah.
However, that said, with all the success that we just covered, you're not going steady with Whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna talk about TikTok a little bit. You've been one of the earliest sellers to test TikTok's live auction feature, which that only launched. It's not even maybe a month old, right?
Yeah, like a month and a couple days.
Yeah. So you went live for, I believe it was 90 minutes with about 120 followers, but you hit 50,000 impressions,
Mm-hmm.
and your numbers are up 300% or something like that week over week, something crazy growth metric, and you're already like top 20 in live generated revenue on TikTok. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you unpack all this? What exactly is TikTok live selling? How does their auction format work?
Yeah.
And are you as bullish on it as you are Whatnot?
Short answer, yeah, I am. So yeah, TikTok just launched their live auctions about a month ago. It's like January 20th. They just went live with it. And they had done live selling before, right? You've probably seen it. You tune into a live, it's just brands will sell a few SKUs. They can answer questions. You know, you have kind of a representative there answering questions, and it's just not very engaging because the price isn't great and the buyer still has to make a decision. Do I want to pay $40 for this or not? Well, I'll just buy it later. Or maybe I just don't want it in general. So live auctions kind of changes that. It's super engaging because you start at, like we're talking about, you start at $1, you start at $2, $5. So it's so engaging for the consumer. And so TikTok just launched that. What's great about TikTok is it's massive, right? And so they have all these views, all these impressions, all these people already on the app, whereas Whatnot doesn't have that. In order for a Whatnot or a purchase to be made on Whatnot, the buyer has to download the app because they probably don't have it, open an account because they probably don't have one, set up payment because they probably haven't done it, find your show, and then make the purchase. On TikTok, tons of users are already there. And so I am bullish on it. It's a much more sophisticated platform because it's integrated within TikTok Shop. And TikTok Shop's been around probably for 5-6 years now at this point. Maybe not, maybe 4 or 5. So they have a lot of the shipping things down, and they have a lot of the data and the metrics. And so we actually get the demographic data that Chris was talking about earlier. We can see how many impressions we get. We can see how many views we get. We can see how long those people are staying, where they're from, all this exciting stuff. Now, the main difference that I see right now is buyers or viewers on Whatnot are super high intent. They want to buy stuff. If you're opening up Whatnot, you're kind of scratching that itch that you're ready to buy something. If you're opening up TikTok, you're probably just doom scrolling. And then, hey, you tune into our live stream and you might end up buying something. So our viewership on TikTok has been a lot higher than Whatnot, but the price points have been about the same, which is really interesting. People on Whatnot are ready to buy. TikTok, they're kind of there for entertainment first. They're there for entertainment first. So those are the two main differences I see right now. But I really like the opportunity that TikTok is. I like the competition. I think it's going to make Whatnot better. I think Whatnot needs to integrate a lot more data that TikTok has. So I'm excited to see that. I can't imagine they won't be doing that. And so I'm excited for the competition. I think 2026 is going to be a pretty crazy year for live selling, specifically live auctions.
Yeah, I guess there's more on the line to keep your audience engaged at TikTok because they could stop being a consumer and just kind of, zone out on the doom scrolling, like you said. That's interesting. But at the same time, there's a bigger audience on TikTok in general. So
yeah.
Would you categorize this? You kind of alluded to the first mover advantage when we were talking about Whatnot and jumping on the ground floor. Do you think TikTok live shopping is Whatnot circa 2023?
I don't want to make like too many bold claims, but yes, I do. I think if you're completely new and you want to sell a category that's already dominant on Whatnot, like take women's fashion, for instance, there's already some really big sellers on the app. And so you're going to have to compete with them for their viewership. I think if you just bring that to TikTok, you're going to have almost immediate success because the consumer is clearly out there. They just need to find you. On Whatnot, if you're going to get, lost in the sea of other big sellers in that category, that's going to be tough. Whereas on TikTok, there's hardly any sellers. I mean, we've been doing it for 2 weeks and we probably top 15 now in GMV on live, gross merchandise value on live, because nobody's doing lives, and especially they're not doing live auctions. And so if you're going to be one of the only people there and you're bringing a product that's already good, you're bringing an experience that's already tested on Whatnot to TikTok. So I do. I think if you're looking to get into it, I think you should do both. But I would definitely look into TikTok. It's going to have more hurdles to get through, but you're going to be one of the few that actually do it early.
Yeah. And I would imagine you can't like stream them at the same time. So you're having to do TikTok streams and then Whatnot streams, correct?
Yeah. Because you can't they're bidding against each other, right? So how would you do 2 bids on 2 different platforms?
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's a lot of, terms of service of, hey, if you're on Whatnot, don't send them to TikTok. And if you're on TikTok, don't send them to Whatnot. So the 2 platforms are heavily competing.
Yeah. Gotta have that walled garden for audiences. I get it. How do the economics of TikTok compare to Whatnot? Like what are the fee structures like over there? If let's say I want to get in on the ground floor, so I choose TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to be paying them in fees?
That's a good question. I think the fees are very similar. I actually don't know 100% what the percentage is. I think it depends on the category, but it's very, very low. I think it's the same as Whatnot. They might even drop the processing fee because I think they do their own processing. So fees are very good. And then you can also control the shipping in a way that you can't on Whatnot. And maybe it's for better or for worse, but on TikTok, you can offer free shipping for certain products. You could cap shipping out at certain dollar number. You can say, hey, if you spend $30, you get free shipping. You can't pull those levers on Whatnot at this moment. And so if you're clever about those things and you can create a unique experience for your audience, then I think that can be a huge leverage point for you on TikTok.
Yeah. Okay.
Now the projections for live selling, it starts with a T, like right. We're talking about like projections in the trillions, right?
Uh-huh.
And you particularly you're right there with them. You do believe it's going to be in the trillions, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
So where does that conviction come from, right? I mean, we're only talking February 2025. What makes you so sure of this? What makes you, what solidified the bull?
Yeah, I think it's the emergence of live auctions, because live selling's been around for a while. TikTok's been doing it, and it just has never caught on. And you've heard that probably the past 5 years. Oh, you get live selling, and then you're like, let's check this out, and you tune into a live show, and it's really boring. They're selling one product. If you're not interested in that product, you're gone, and then it's not even a great price. And so that to me never clicked. And it's the same. And it's like, just shop it on Amazon. You get to make your decision at your own pace. The price is pretty good. So it never clicked. The emergence of live auctions is really, really interesting because it's highly engaging and it's a little bit addictive. So that's really what I see. And I also see new users every day, anecdotally getting involved, And just a final piece there is like, on TikTok yesterday, I think we had a stream. Today's Monday. We had a stream on Friday and Saturday. And in each of those streams, we sold about 200 items in each stream. We had, 120 of those, 400 or 300 orders were people who bought multiple items. And so it's very, very common. About 50% of our audience on Whatnot purchases more than one item per stream. And then on TikTok, that's a little different because the person's a little different, but highly engaging. People buy multiple things, and it's a thrill of a deal. It's the thrill of the hunt. It's that aspect that, I mean, right now, right, the consumer's kind of being squeezed in every single direction. And if they can come to a show, be engaged, and get a great deal, they're going to opt for that over and over and over again, as this live auction thing grows. So I think there's a few different forces at play.
Yeah. Often anytime something changes for the negative, and this is multi-platforms, not even just talking about specifics, the subject of platform risk always comes up. Do you have any access to your audience outside of Whatnot and outside of TikTok, or is that truly just closed off, or are you just playing in their sandbox only?
Yeah, on Whatnot, you're playing in their sandbox for sure. They don't have it's not a social app, right? I mean, it is a social app, but there's no community aspect. There's no posting outside of lives right now. And so I can't communicate with them unless I'm live. And that's challenging, right? So you want to try to grow your Instagram, grow, all your socials while doing whatnot as well. TikTok, I believe it's the same thing. I actually haven't looked too much into the TikTok, like can you get their email, things like that. It's the same as TikTok Shop. If you're familiar with any TikTok Shop, like terms of service, it's going to be the same because it goes through TikTok Shop. But yeah, we try to own that audience. We send in inserts in every single order with a QR code to join our email list, things like that. So we want to own that audience, and you do have that risk of being on whatnot specifically. But that's what I like the competition. 2026 is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
If you're doing this or thinking about it and it is against terms of service, you can just say, you know what, let's cut this. But I mean, you do have addresses that you mail people, their things. Are you allowed to, let's say, send a postcard that links them to your website and they could buy things statically from you there?
I really have no idea. That's a great,
Okay.
I should look into that though. Yeah. I have no idea. Is that,
Yeah,
can you do that you probably can't do that on Amazon, right?
Oh no. If you get caught, you would be gone.
Okay.
But however, like I'm bullish on snail mail.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there for marketing purposes.
Yeah. At this point, emails, I mean, you open your email, you have 200 new emails every hour. It's like,
yeah. Are you like studying HSN and QVC like game tape to try to be a better seller on live streams?
I probably should be. I'm not though, but I probably should be. It's the one thing that I learned really quickly is it's all about engagement. It's like, that's the word that makes a good stream versus a bad stream is the engagement. And you have a lot of things that can increase engagement, whether it be the price of the product, the specific products, your attitude, your energy, the variety of product. There's so many things to play that you can pull to increase engagement. But at the end of the day, that is your North Star. How engaging is the show? How engaging am I being? How engaged is the audience? So yeah, I'd be curious like what their playbook is for that. Because whenever it's static TV, that engagement, you got to overcome a lot.
Yeah. It fall off a ladder. Like, I don't know if you ever seen that Mike Rowe clip. Mike Rowe used to be on HSN or QVC, one of those two. He like fell off a ladder.
That's funny.
But all right. So we've talked a lot about the business in front of the camera. I want to talk a little bit about the business behind the camera. I've seen you admit publicly that your weaknesses are organization, scheduling, and leadership. And that one felt a little personal because I think I have some of those same weaknesses. Can you talk a little bit about that and like what you're trying to do to become a better business owner?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. And that is every day I'm like, hey, I just failed today at organization, scheduling, all those things. Like it's a failure almost every day. And it's totally different than what it was whenever I sold on Amazon. You sell on Amazon, you're pretty much dealing with your laptop. Maybe you have a couple of VAs that are systemized and they know what they're doing. And you just kind of, manage some KPIs. But at the end of the day, if, you don't have to schedule a warehouse employee to pack things, you don't have to deal with the overhead of a warehouse or you don't have to on whatnot, but I do. You don't have to schedule streamers to make sure you have product to sell that's ready to sell and then pack the next day and then sold again today. So those things are challenges I didn't know I was getting into. And, from February to July of last year, it was just a slow snowball of me gaining more problems. Like, oh, I'm hiring streamers, so now I have more problems. Oh, I'm getting a bigger warehouse, so now I have more problems. I'm selling more products, so now I have more problems. So there's those things that I didn't know I was getting into, and I knew that that would be a challenge for me. I'm somebody who likes to do it anyways and just figure it out. And thankfully, I've been able to figure out a lot of those things. But every day, like I said, I do realize like, man, communication with my team is not the best. And so all that to say, I wish I had a silver bullet for you. It's still something I'm working on. I like to try to over communicate expectations. I think that's the main thing is, people who work for me, they think I expect one thing, but I actually expect something different. And so we're just misaligned. And so coming in with clear expectations And hey, if you're doing this, I will be not happy with you, but that is your job. So you need to do this as your job. If you're not hitting these numbers, or if you're not doing these things, then we will have a conversation. And it's not me being mad at you. It's not me wanting to fire you or anything. It's just like, this is your job. Here's the expectations. If you're not hitting those, we need to work on a way to get you to hit those. That's been something that I've been working on, just expectations, communication.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've talked about hiring streamers, and would that, if I wanted to start this business, and I, of course, I do the streams myself, would another streamer be your first hire, or would it be something else?
Yeah, first hire would not be a streamer at all. First hire for sure would be an order packer or like a warehouse manager, somebody of that nature. Like I mentioned earlier, the volume you can do on Whatnot is pretty insane. And so you'll quickly realize that your leverage point as a seller, as a streamer, is going live more, not packing, not being in the warehouse packing. So definitely that would be my first hire.
Is there like when you do hire a streamer, is there channel identity risk or store identity risk? Is that a consideration?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Huge. There's a lot of people who I talk to who don't think you should ever hire streamers, and like, you should be the streamer. You're kind of the hero, right? People tune in for you. And so that's strategy like you have to plan for whenever you first start, is like, do I want to be the hero of my show forever? My answer was no. So our name for our channel doesn't involve me. I sell women's clothes, right? I'm sure people honestly would probably rather not buy women's clothes from me. Like if I'm selling underwear or bras, like nobody wants to buy that from me. So, I made that conscious decision at the beginning of our channel. But then also you want to find somebody who relates to your audience if you already have an audience. So thankfully, like, I've made some bad hires for sure. So, but now we have amazing people, and they like the product we sell. So that helps. People tuning in probably like the product we have. And so they instantly relate on that front. And then sometimes age, like if you're selling maybe to an older audience, you should probably get maybe an older person, things like that. You want somebody to relate, because people want to buy things from people they relate to. So that's the main piece.
Sure. Okay. You've once said that once you get into the liquidation business, you realize you should never buy things full price. It ruins retail forever. That was one of your most engaging tweets. My guess would be because it's 100% fact. Yeah. Can you kind of unpack that moment when you see behind the curtain, and then I'm specifically interested in how the liquidation to live selling inventory pipeline actually works.
Yeah.
Like what changed, and what are your methods for sourcing specifically for live shopping?
Yeah, great questions. And that's a huge unlock, is sourcing, because especially if you're going from Amazon to Whatnot, the sourcing is totally different. But yeah, that unlock, honestly, for me with the liquidation, the retail, and kind of ruining retail was when I was online arbitrage on Amazon. Is you're waiting for a sale, and then as soon as you hit the sale, you're unloading all your capital, right? And so you quickly understand that sales come every week, every weekend, every made up holiday, they come. And so I was a shopper. I'm a shopper at heart. And that was kind of my anecdote, was just like, or, whatever. My anecdote was just buying stuff to sell. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this have that same feeling, is like, man, I just spent $10,000 today. That feels good, but it's all profit. So just kind of that feeling is like, I don't want to buy stuff full price. Like, I'll just wait for it to go on sale. But then, yeah, you get into the liquidation game, which is primarily what we're selling on Whatnot, primarily what most sellers are selling on Whatnot. Is that piece that I mentioned earlier, is that variety. High variety works really well on Whatnot. And because it's engaging and everything's different. When you think about a retailer, like let's take Macy's, for instance. Macy's, the stuff that they're selling today, they've already merchandised it. They've figured out the price points that work best for their consumer. They figured out the brands that work best, the styles, all that stuff. And they're putting it in their stores to create an amazing experience for their shopper. That's an experience that I want to give my viewers, but I don't want to have to go out and source this brand and then source that brand, figure out the price point, figure out the style, figure out the sizing. Macy's has already done that. And so by the time that it goes through the retail cycle, maybe it gets returned by a customer, or maybe they're closing it out because they're ready to revamp their stores or they're online, then they need to liquidate it. And they don't really care what it goes for, right? Because their business is not liquidation. Their business is full price retail, get as many consumers in the door to buy full price. And they make a lot of money doing that, maybe, but they don't have a business in liquidation. They're just trying to get rid of it. And so that's our opportunity, is to say, you've already merchandised it. You've already created a price point. You already have all these great brands that you've vetted, that you believe there is an audience out there for. So let me take all that, essentially. You're taking all their product that Macy's sells, and you buy it at pennies on the dollar. And then you give that same experience to your customer via live. And usually if it's closeout or if it's customer return, let's take closeout, for instance. Closeouts where it maybe never was purchased to begin with and it just never sold. Those things can be a little bit more difficult because there was usually a reason why they didn't sell. Maybe the price point's too high, and that's okay. But what if it's the style? What if it's the color? What if it's the brand that just isn't desirable? So those things can be challenging, but you can get really great prices on those. Customer returns is a great business to get into for Whatnot, because somebody had to buy it to begin with. And when somebody returns it, it becomes the brand's headache. And the brand can either pay, they can get a whole warehouse system to manage their reverse supply chain, or they can just say, hey, we're going to liquidate it to whoever wants it for X price per unit. And that covers our end. And, whatever happens to it, it happens to it. And so there's a lot of sellers and Whatnot who manage reverse logistics for brands, because they pay a price per unit, and they're getting in-season stuff usually. Like, somebody bought it to begin with, so it was desirable at least at one point. And so to sell that to your audience, I mean, ideally those things are desirable, and they're usually, for clothing, they're usually great sizes, right? And you're not getting a ton of small sizes or a ton of large sizes. You're usually getting a good mix, a good average. So that's kind of how I see the liquidation. That's how liquidation works, especially in clothing, and that's where your opportunity is.
Now you mentioned variety of items helps.
Mm-hmm.
And from my experience with liquidation, those pallets are usually, there's not a whole lot of units of any one thing in particular. So that's probably a benefit for the shopping model that you're using. However, it makes me wonder, what the heck do your books look like? As far as like calculating total profit on a pallet, do you have a system? Is there a tool that you use, or is it manifest a spreadsheet manual?
Yeah. The easiest way that we found is just an average price per unit. And then whenever you're running a show, try your best to sell only from that lot of goods. Or if you do sell from two different lots of goods, two different price points, then figure out how many units of one lot you sold versus how many others, things like that. But yeah, the way that we do it right now, and I don't know if there's any better way, I would be interested, is just find an average price per unit that you purchased, and then how many units you sold, per show. And then it's okay, we cleared out that lot. We bought 4,000, we sold 4,000. What's the numbers look like now?
Okay. And how do you house?
Yeah, it's all on a spreadsheet. Or how do we spreadsheet.
Yeah, just all the various pallets and stuff.
Yeah.
Just combined onto one spreadsheet then?
Yeah. Spreadsheet with a few different sheets. So after every show, we have our streamers put in the summary, the metrics. Hey, we sold this many units. This was the total price. This is what we're getting paid out. This is how much we spent in shipping. This is how long the show was. And then that links to the inventory that's in the same sheet. So it's like, oh, let's take that food, for instance. We purchased that food for, $3 a unit or whatever it was. We sold 1,000 units, or we sold 300 units. How much did we get for it? Okay. What's the breakdown?
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Since we're on this topic, I think one of the things people would be worried about, especially if they're not buying closeouts, but they're buying liquidation, is how much of the product do you have to just throw in the garbage compared to how much can you actually sell?
Yeah, great question. I think that's going to depend on where you source. Is it from a reputable source? The questions that we ask, before we purchase, I want to know the history of these goods. Were they in a retail store? Were they customer returns? Is this coming from the brand? Is this coming from the retailer? Is this coming from a middleman who already picked through everything? Things like that. You need to know where these came from, because typically they're unmanifested. It's like, hey, we have Best Buy Electronics, 600 units, in 4 different pallets. Do you want it? It's like, well, okay, where'd they come from? That's kind of how I understand what we're buying the best, is just the history of it. In terms of customer returns, I'm typically pleasantly surprised with how things come back. I think most people, especially if they're dealing with the brand directly, brands usually have strict return line guidelines. And so if you're buying a brand that's customer returns, then you can look at their customer return policy, see what type of things am I going to be getting. If it says you can return anything, then I would expect to get anything, right? But I will say most of the things we get, maybe like less than 5% for sure. Less than 5% are trash. And it depends on the category. Whenever we sold like kitchen appliances, it was probably a little bit higher because people would use a blender, and a blender has 100 different parts. So they would send it back with like half the parts. So thankfully you can still sell that on Whatnot. You can just hold it up and say, hey, here's a blender. It has half the parts. Or you might not even know what half the parts are. You just show them, this is what it is. This is what you're getting. We're going to start at $1. And then people make the decision on if they want to buy that or not.
Now, that doesn't sound like conversations that you're having with a place like B Stock or 888 Lots, right?
Yeah.
You've explored corporate liquidation, correct?
Yeah. So a lot of that fashion is a whole ball game, right? So we're kind of more in fashion than we are anywhere else. And fashion goes through a lot of different brokers. So we try to find as many relationships with brokers as we can to basically, put our fingerprints anywhere. Hey, this brand is liquidating. Hey, this brand's liquidating. We're not going to be in communication with all those brands. So we try to find those kind of middlemen who are. B Stock is a great opportunity though, because you get retailer liquidation, retailer closeout, retailer customer returns at small quantities. That's what's great. It's like 2 pallets here, 2 pallets here. A lot of those deals that are through brokers or through wholesale or just direct with the brand, they're usually a truckload or 2 of, hey, we got 20,000 units we need to get rid of, but you get super sharp pricing. It's just a lot higher volume.
So you've launched Whatnot Academy with mutual friend Shannon Jean. You get, $20 a month, you get course content, you're going to get live Q&As, you get raid trains. I don't even know what that is, but I'm sure we'll find out. You get wholesale deals.
Yeah.
If someone watches this and they're like, you know what, I really want to learn more, I want some guidance. What should someone expect if they were to join Whatnot Academy, and what's your roadmap look like?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. And Shannon's amazing. He's, given me this opportunity to build Whatnot Academy inside his community, alongside his community. He's a brilliant person. He's helped me a lot. And so just helping his audience is amazing. And then also being able to provide other people that opportunity to learn what is live selling, what is Whatnot, what is TikTok. The 3 things that we're focusing on is sourcing. So we're going to we have resources for sourcing. Kind of a lot what I just shared. It's like I've been in the sourcing game for a long time. And so here's how to source specifically for Whatnot. Here's how to source specifically for live selling. And then selling. So how do you sell the stuff? The engagement piece we talked about. How do you increase your engagement? How do you increase your viewership? How do you physically set up your setup? And what have you found that works best? How do you ship these things, right? All that is within selling. And then the other piece is scaling. So scaling either your channel. So how do you grow more followers? We'll talk about that. And then how do you grow your business in general? Maybe you're moving from, your closet to now you need a storage unit to now you need a warehouse. I've done all those things. And so I made a lot of mistakes, lost a lot of money on bad warehouses and things like that. So we talk about that, and we have those resources and those video guides, but then the main piece is just a community. Like every business is going to be different on live selling because it's not a cookie cutter model. You can sell anything. I mean, they just added this fresh seafood and this, food aspect to Whatnot. I don't know anything about that, but I would love to help give people those pieces that we learned and then go explore that. Like if that's your niche, if you can source that stuff, or if you have a cattle farm or something, like this could be huge for you. So let me help you with the stuff that I know, and then also learn from you, and then you help other people. So it's that community aspect. I think a lot of people who are familiar with you guys, like for sure, like the power of community is infinite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine buying half a cow on Whatnot, but I want to go watch.
I want to do it.
A stream. I want to see what it's about.
Yeah, what would that conversation look like with my wife, right? It's like,
right.
so there's gonna be a really big shipment coming up soon.
I like that, you know, you're building in public and you're posting the wins, you're sharing the losses. What made you decide to be so open about this whole journey on Twitter?
Yeah. And it was a lot of through the Amazon. Like I had followed you, I'd followed Corey Ganem on Amazon, and amazing resources. Like you guys helped me so much with Amazon. Just, I mean, I can't say it enough. Like, thank you so much, because that's how, you know, we purchased a house. That's how we purchased cars. Like, it helps our family, right? And you probably don't even know it, but you're helping people, and you do know it. But, you know, it's just, so that there's that aspect to it of where on Amazon, I'd learned so much from other people building in public, learned so much being a part of some communities. And I had always wanted to do that. I think it's a lot of fun. I like the community. I like teaching people. I like talking about it. But there was already people who were doing it on Amazon. Not to say you can't do it on Amazon, but there were just a lot of resources out there, you and Corey and a lot of other people. And so whenever I started getting into Whatnot, I realized that, oh, I'm almost like pioneering this, because there's not a lot of resources out there. Even the primary resources on Whatnot are pretty minimal. And so I learned and experienced and failed and, you know, succeeded all by my own experience of like, this worked or this didn't work. And so I don't want that to be the same case 2 years from now. Like, let me put this information out there so that other people don't fall into those same pitfalls, but also can help me, like reach out and help me, or reach out and build our businesses together. I think that that's super cool. Like, I am experiencing something that a lot of people are interested in. And I think that's amazing. Like, let me share it, because I love talking about it.
Awesome. Kip, as we wind down the episode, we always like to do a lightning round.
Yeah.
It's just a rapid fire questions and some rapid fire answers, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The first one I have for you is, I'm curious if your Amazon suspension had never happened, do you think you end up on Whatnot, or did that door open only because Amazon closed?
Rapid fire here. I would be on Whatnot, yes. I don't think I would be as big on Whatnot. I was forced to go live daily. I was forced to build a business. I was forced to overcome the warehouse problems, overcome the streamer problem. You know, I was forced to do those things that I might have thrown in the towel if I had another avenue that was successful.
Mm-hmm. What's one thing you know now about live selling that you wish someone had told you before your first show?
It's very relational. It's very relational. It's very for the audience. I thought it was going to be very transactional, and it's not. People like you. People want to ask you questions. People want to know about you. That's actually very engaging for them. People want to feel like a community. I mean, we talked about it. It's the power of community. And so whenever you can provide that with a selling aspect, that's the ultimate. That's the bread and butter.
Have you gotten any weirdos yet who are like, you know, I don't know, sending you strange DMs or?
Yeah.
You know,
thankfully, not me.
Can you try those heels on?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do some crazy stuff, right? People like that stuff, you know. I like to get wild a little bit on the stream, so we'll do some crazy stuff like that, but not because they asked me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's a purchase you've made under $500 in the past year that has been the most impactful for your business or your life or your parenthood?
Oh man, everything across everything. I think this is crazy, but it's like the maximum storage on your phone and like cloud storage, because I'm taking photos of like he's one now. I'm taking photos of my son, taking videos of my son. Like having a kid, Apple knows it. Apple knows that you're about to increase your storage space significantly with these videos and photos. So if we're talking about family, like if we're talking about that, like that's number one is that. I wish my biggest regret of like parenthood, maybe not biggest, but one thing I wish I had in parenthood is the Meta glasses, because I want to like capture these moments with my son without stopping the moment. And I wish I had that. Because you can just videotape it without like getting your phone out, and then it distracts him and this and that. So that's super important to me. Like being a dad's super important. And if there's anything that anything with that is priceless.
Great answer. I love that.
Yeah. Is there a book, a podcast, or a YouTube video that has had substantial impact on your life or your business over the past 3 to 6 months?
Oh man. I mean, the Shannon Jean Mastermind, it's $5. He talks a lot about liquidation, how to make money on liquidation. And he, a lot of the people in that, I think there's almost 3,000 people in there all across the globe buying from B stock or buying from, just any liquidation and selling on Facebook, selling on eBay, any of that. I mean, that's huge. That's been huge. But Shannon Jean's been amazing, just opening my eyes on the ways to make money outside of platforms, honestly. There's a lot of people selling on Facebook, a lot of people selling local. And then we help people sell on Whatnot. Like, hey, you're already selling on those platforms. Let's do it on Whatnot. Let's do it on TikTok. Let's catch the wave that is live selling. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely anything Shannon has.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, follow you, connect with you on the inner tubes?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at KIP_Roland, ROLAND. I talk a lot about Whatnot, TikTok, my story from Amazon to these, platforms, a lot of the failures that we've had. So that's the primary place to follow me, is on X and Twitter, or X/Twitter. And then if you come in the Shannon Jean Mastermind, I'm in there posting quite a bit. And then we also have the Whatnot Academy, which is if you want to take that next step into live selling, live auctions, we'll help you do it. We'll help you grow. We'll help you sell, source, and scale. So those are the main places.
Perfect. And I'm going to make sure there's links below to everything if you guys want to check it out. We always end the show with a quote of the week, and this one's is, do not wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking, from William Butler Yeats. And I thought this one was good because, you didn't even have the option to wait for the conditions to be right. Now, you were sort of forced into making conditions right for yourself, and you got moving. You didn't let excuses hold you back or anything like that. And I thought this one, it's not something that a lot of people are gritty enough to pull off, and you did. And I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, dude, this was a great conversation. Thank you for spending the time with us. I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You guys are really, really great question answers. Great conversation. Is awesome. And I appreciate all your resources you guys post on X and everywhere. So you guys are amazing. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right. Until next time, everybody, good selling. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group. And be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.